Joining us now is former SEAL Team 6 member Robert O'Neill, who took the kill shot on Osama bin Laden. Robert also took part in the missions to rescue the lone survivor, Marcus Luttrell. He was also the lead jumper in the mission to rescue Captain Richard Phillips from the Somali pirates. He's been decorated 53 times, including 2 Silver Stars, 4 Bronze Stars with Valor, a Joint Service Commendation Medal with Valor, and many others. He's since gone on to write books, including his memoir titled The Operator, Firing the Shots That Killed Osama bin Laden. He's a speaker, and most recently, he's the owner of a cannabis company called Operator Canna Co., which he says is helping vets with PTSD. Robert, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kim. It's great to be here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. First, of course, we've got to hear the story of bin Laden, and we've got to go through the story. But it's been so long since that's happened, and so much has changed with U.S. foreign policy and the mentality of the average American towards foreign policy, the war on terror. And I'm really interested to get your thoughts kind of now in hindsight, what you think of everything that's gone on with this war on terror and even your part in it. But let's start off with bin Laden. Let's hear the story. So when you were on SEAL Team 6, when you do they tell you what your mission is? Like, how far in advance do you find out?
On this one, they told us about 2 weeks in advance. At first, they started it off with, they called some of the senior guys from our squadron at SEAL Team 6 into a room, and they said, we found a thing, and this thing is in a house. This house is in a bowl in these mountains, and the mountains are in a country, and you're going to go get this thing and bring it back to us and show it to us. And we said, okay, no problem. What's the thing? Well, we can't tell you. Okay. Which country? Can't tell you. How are we getting there? Can't tell you. Oh, fair enough. And the only answer we got was when we asked how much air support. They said none. We're like, okay, at least that's a positive answer. We're getting no air support. And by the way, you can't bring any Air Force guys who are your high-speed radio guys that'll get everything from a casualty evacuation to close air support, the most dangerous person on the battlefield, and our pararescuemen who are our surgeons. So you don't get your medics, you don't get your comms guys. A bunch of SEALs are going in there. So I hope you know how to use your medical equipment, your radios. So for that one, it was 2 weeks. And for other ones, like Captain Phillips, we were told we were going to go rescue him, and we took off 4 hours later. After the initial call, we were in the Indian Ocean with a full head count of over 100 Navy SEALs 16 hours later. So that's pretty impressive. And then a day and a half later on Easter Sunday, we rescued him. But most missions were just in theater. So be it Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, we'll know the day of, which we'll know certain targets that we want to hit. Obviously, bin Laden and some delegated leadership. But for the most part, we find out that day. And we got so good at it, it didn't really matter who it was, because we didn't try to complicate it. We can't. People would say to me, like, the bin Laden compound, that was really big. How'd you clear it? And I said, well, if the guy in front of me went left, I went right, and we just did that over and over and over. That's as simple as it is. Keep it simple and don't talk yourself into an ass whipping. So for this one, about 2 weeks. For every other one, pretty much that day.
So they didn't ever tell you the name, or they did?
No, did. They did. About 5 days after they told us about the thing, they drove us to a spot where they said, you're going to meet the people involved. They're going to read you in. And we drove down to a place in North Carolina, a secret, 3-letter agency base. And that's where we met the actual bin Laden team. And it was kind of headed by the famous woman. They called her Maya in the movie Zero Dark 30, played by Jessica Chastain. Awesome job, by the way, in that movie. That was exactly what she's like. But when we first met her, because we assumed bin Laden was a ghost. Like, we're not going to find him. It's 2011. We've been looking for him since before 9/11. He's just gone. And she came in with the commanding officer of SEAL Team 6 to our team and said, all right, the reason you guys are here is this is as close as we've ever been to Osama bin Laden. And to hear that, and to hear her actually say the word Abbottabad for Pakistan, you just kind of knew, okay, this is legit. I've never heard of that town. This is real. And our response wasn't cheering. It was, all right, cool. Are we going right now? Because we're ready. And we obviously trained for 2 weeks because there was 5 options on the table. A lot of bombs on the house to wipe it out. They told us something about a multilateral mission, which would have been us and the Pakistani guys. And we laughed immediately at that one. We're like, yeah, you tell Pakistan we're coming. He's gone. You'll never hear from bin Laden again. The unilateral, and then like a hammer throw, which would have been one misled a guy in a courtyard hoping to hit him. And historically, that doesn't work. But we had to show well, the administration and the leaders what we could do, just so we're an option. So we trained for not for ourselves. We got it, but just contingencies in the helicopter frame, showing Admiral McRaven, Leon Panetta, who was running the CIA at the time, and certain decision makers that we could do it, and they got comfortable with us. And we were really good at SEAL Team 6 about putting people forward in places like Washington D.C. where we could kind of massage the leadership, saying, "Hey, here's what SEAL Team 6 can do. Here's whatever," and just not pressuring them, but just forward thinking that once, because we knew, I mean, even when Iraq kicked off, and that was the most exciting as far as combat. Eventually, Bin Laden's going to pop, I hope, in Pakistan. So we got to maintain a presence there right on the border, which we did really well. Not me, but I mean, I was there too. But like the smart leadership above me was really good about maintaining our presence there, and then eventually it paid off because we had the theater, we knew the terrain, we definitely had the tactics, and then they after they forward staged us, they sent us in, and then we had a 90-minute flight on a Sunday from Jalalabad Airfield to Bin Laden's compound.
And that was in the middle of the night?
Yeah, I think that would have been about probably 1 a.m. local for a 90-minute flight. You want to get there. Obviously, you want 0% illumination. Full moon, you can see a lot better. Obviously, when it's dark, it's better for us. We have the night capability. So about get there about 2:30 a.m. Everyone will be asleep. Hopefully, we'll get in quiet. That's the plan. But the only time the plan works is when you're planning. Obviously, the first helicopter had a crash land in the front yard just because of weather conditions and updraft. It was a little warmer. The pilot decided to put it there, so my team, who was supposed to go on the rooftop, was let outside of the 20-foot walls, and then we had to figure out a way in. Fortunately, though, like I said, we didn't complicate it, and we just knew whoever's in front go one way, the guy behind you. The nice thing is you don't need to worry about your back because one of your best friends is covering your back. You need to worry about maybe 45% of what's in front of you.
Why don't you? Just so the helicopters landed on the compound and in the compound. I mean, obviously that makes noise. So what's the thinking of doing that versus landing far away and then going in on foot silently?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good question, Kim, because a lot of people don't think that way, but that is the best way to do it. Land somewhere far away, take your time and walk in. That's the smartest way. But because of the length of the flight, the lack of ability to like refuel or rejock anything, we got to go right to the X. And so landing on the X is landing right in front of the house, which is easily the most dangerous thing you can possibly do, especially for hardened fighters like Al-Qaeda who know that they can start shooting right at the helicopter. They've been doing that since Black Hawk Down in 1993. But because of every restriction like fuel on the helicopters, time on target, we're going to get a maximum of 32 minutes there to find him, to kill him, and to bring him out. So we thought of everything from, can we skydive in? But you're in Pakistan, first world country we're not at war with. And if you're there during the day, it's going to be really bad because now the options are, well, we stay hard pointed in the house. Hopefully the administration gets someone to Islamabad, Pakistan to talk with the Pakistanis while we negotiate or whatever. So get in and get out. And then it's better to, beg forgiveness than ask permission.
Yeah. But doing it this way, I mean, what were the casualty numbers?
For us, 0. We didn't have anybody get hurt, which is amazing. The first group, maybe 12 shooters and then 3 air crew on the first bird. The pilot alone saved all of their lives. He told me later that an inexperienced pilot, when he felt the distress, would have powered it up and then would have rolled it and killed everybody on board. He was smart enough to realize if I turn it, I can put the tail of this helicopter on the high fence and pin the nose into the dirt, which is incredible to think. I mean, even look at the recent catastrophic failures of aircraft lately. Imagine putting yourself. We were fortunate to have the 4 best pilots in the world, and Army pilots are the best helicopter pilots in the world, no doubt. Mm-hmm. He was able to think of what I just explained in the blink of an eye and saved everyone's lives. So that's how the whole thing started. Then our pilot was good enough to see that they can't hover, we can't hover, you're getting out here. And that's just effective communication. We were really good at talking to each other. And the key to effective communication is say what you're saying, and then when you're done saying what you're saying, stop saying it.
But that helicopter crash landed, right? So how did they get out? How did those guys get out?
He pinned it and it was right side up. They just hopped out. I mean, a little banged up.
No, but I mean, when you left, when it was all over.
Oh, we had to blow it up. We had to rig that with explosives, thermobaric charges and stuff like that, because we wanted to get rid of the technology so that, our quote unquote allies in Pakistan wouldn't sell it to China, which is exactly what they did, because they got the back of the helicopter, and China was able to reverse engineer it. Now, amazingly, they have helicopters just like ours because China's really good at stealing other people's technology. But yeah, I mean, we got out. We had 23 guys on the ground. Nobody got hurt from us. We ended up killing 5 terrorists, to include Bin Laden. We didn't hurt one of Bin Laden's wives got shot in the leg. We left her behind. And then after I killed Bin Laden, we did take him out on a different helicopter. But we were really good as the team that we're not there to murder people. We are the good guys. I saw guys going back and forth between rooms on the most important mission in modern history because somehow like a child got separated from his or her family. And most of these guys were fathers, and we just don't want to see kids more afraid than they need to be. So risking their lives to make sure these kids weren't scared. And that's what we did all the time. That's why we were good about rules of engagement too. If the more latitude we got, the fewer casualties there were because we're a precision team and we're not just going spraying. Like on that mission, it was actually 47 missions. I fired 3 total bullets. That's all I needed. They were into the same guy. So just a really good team. We'd been doing it a whole bunch of times. Even though we were in like Iraq, I say a lot because I think we did more missions in Iraq, but that was just really good for I hate to say training, but our tactics. We just got better. We adapted to an enemy. We adapted to their adaptations. And we were very prepared we were the most prepared team in the world for this mission.
What is the U.S. policy when there are kids? Like, let's say Osama bin, let's just assume, like, what if he had been holding a small child?
Well, as close as I was to him, if he was holding a child, he would have dropped the child because I would have still shot him in the face. I've actually seen that happen before where they're using human shields and you'll hear like the term 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. That's nonsense. It's 2 to the head. SEAL Team 6 takes headshots. So if he was holding a kid, I'm shooting him in the head. He drops a kid. I hope the kid doesn't get hurt. The unfortunate thing is when we start dropping bombs, you have to consider collateral damage. And for that, with between 25 and 30 people in the house, they would have killed all of them if we dropped a bomb on them, which that would have been justified to get Bin Laden. Me personally, I prefer, especially now looking back, I'd prefer to go in there myself and not hurt anyone who doesn't need to be hurt. Because I learned the hard way a long time in combat. Most people in combat are not combatants. They're like us. They're trying to get on with their lives. They want to raise good kids and educate them. That's really it. And they've got a hell of a lot tougher life than we do here.
Is there a U.S. policy, like when you're going into these various different missions? I mean, maybe it's changed since you were in there, since we've now gone to more drone warfare. But was there a policy of collateral damage?
Well,
What's acceptable?
it constantly changes, and the further we get in wars, the more politicians and lawyers we get involved. So that's why we always lose. We should have been mostly out of Afghanistan in 2005 and just kept the base there. But they want to surge, and put more tanks in there because, as we're learning now with government efficiency, if you start building contracts for your buddy to build a couple $100 million worth of more tanks, they're going to do it, and that's kind of what they're doing. So the policy at first was basically you can kill as many people as you want, which we never did. It got from that at the start of the war to, I remember a gunfight once in Afghanistan with Taliban or Al Qaeda fighters retreating into a cave, calling in for air support and having command someone 100 miles away. The closest he's getting to getting hurt is burning his lips on his coffee, saying, we're not saying there are women and children in that cave, but you can't prove that there are not, so denied. So it got ridiculous. And that's when at SEAL Team 6, we're really good at adapting to crap like that. But imagine the 20-year-old Marine who's thinking about getting blown up nonstop. He gets shot at, and then he starts thinking, well, I should shoot back, but should I? Because I might go to jail. And our government has sent soldiers and Marines to prison for murder in a war zone, which is a bigger crime than what they say they committed.
I would think that haunts people, though. I mean, if something like that happens, I mean, if you do end up killing children or women or innocents, and that's got to haunt, I would think, yes, the vets or afterwards.
That's the worst part. I've been lucky. The entire time I worked, over 400 combat missions, not one guy in my team was ever hurt. So I've never seen, I've lost a lot of colleagues. I've never seen one die. I've never seen one get hurt, which is great. And I've never seen a child get hurt, like really hurt, or God forbid, killed. So I'm lucky. But even seeing the kids get scared as a father, that bothers me to this day. Like just trying to put myself in their shoes. Waking up at 3 a.m. to your worst nightmare being in your room with you is just something I wouldn't wish on these poor kids. And the kids are everywhere, and kids aren't, they're born into their situation, and they only know what they're taught. And I can't, I know innocent kids have died, and it breaks my heart. It sucks. They shouldn't be involved. That we can have that conversation for a long time. It always comes down to men trying to get power. That's why innocent people are getting killed, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if I'm just lucky, I never killed anyone I didn't mean to, never seen it. But yeah, a lot of people that have seen people blown in half, IEDs have their, trying to put their buddies back together. Yeah, there's a lot of suffering, and it's I found that the older I get, the more severe it is because of just the self reflection and the humanity of everything. My favorite saying is, "It's a large planet, but it's a small world, and we have a lot more in common than we all think."
Yeah. So going back to that night, when you saw Osama bin Laden, did he look the way you thought he would look? I mean, when I see people, like celebrities, for example, in real
Right.
life, they never look like what I'd seen in pictures and on television and whatnot. And so we'd all seen pictures of Osama and videos of Osama. When you saw him in person, did he look the same?
His face did. I definitely what had it 100% for me in the half a second I looked at him, it was his nose. I recognized his nose. I'd seen it before, like everyone else, thousands of times. I was surprised at how tall he was, and I was surprised at how skinny he was. And
Hmm.
he looked afraid, and his beard was white, almost gray, because he hadn't put in the dye that he used to do for his videos. But just the way he was maneuvering, his wife Amal, who had been shot in the leg before I got in the room, she was in front of him, and I was just, again, she's in front of him, the kid's on the floor, but I'm close enough to take a. She was short, he was tall. I was a good shot, so it wasn't a big worry for me. I thought he was going to blow up anyway, so my concern wasn't am I going to hit him? It's like, well, I'm tired of thinking about blowing up. Let's get it over with and see what it feels like. It was just it was a weird environment where I can look back, close my eyes, see exactly the boots that I was wearing, and turning the corner and seeing Bin Laden standing there. But I was with the best team in the world. The guy in front of me was the one who was brave. I just followed him up there for the tired of thinking about it.
Hmm. So uh, let's talk about whether or not he was really killed, because
Sure.
a lot of people say there's no body, no proof, right? How do you know it was real? So that there's a lot of theories around whether or not Osama bin Laden was really killed. Um,
Mhm.
the U.S. never released photos. First of all, did
I
they
know.
ask you to bring him back alive, or what was because you said originally when they brought you into the room and they said you're going to go get this thing and
Yeah.
you're going to bring the thing back to us. I mean, did they say you bring the thing back to us alive?
No, not really. It was technically a capture, or sorry, it was a kill capture, not a capture kill. And we had a thing at SEAL Team 6, like if you flew me from Virginia to this part of the world, we didn't get dressed up for nothing. So
Hmm.
if you send us, he's basically going to die. And that was just it. He had less than a second to convince me not to kill him, and he didn't do it.
Okay.
As far as a lot of people don't believe it, but also a lot of people probably can't find Mexico on the map. So I don't take that too seriously. And I realize that I'm basically one of two people that saw what happened. Um, but you got to figure Amal bin Laden was right there. That's bin Laden's wife. So I killed the guy who was in bed with bin Laden's wife. So either way, someone's going to shoot him. But it was just me.
Hmm.
It was we wouldn't have we wouldn't have spent all that time trying to go get him. And we have professional photography of his body when we brought him back to Bagram. Like the pictures are there. They're not pleasant. I mean, it looks. A lot of people want justice served. They don't need to know what it looks like, but I think they should release them just for that alone. They're there. I know Congress people who've seen them. They've actually
Yeah.
joked with me and said they're actually in a file cabinet at Langley, and not even like under lock and key. They're just sitting there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and for people that don't want to believe it, that's I at this point, if you don't believe it at this point, I can't convince them. It doesn't really bother me. I know we did it,
Hmm.
and most importantly, the people who lost loved ones on the most horrific day of their life, 9/11, and they said there'll never be closure, but having a name with a face, the healing process has definitely started. So thanks, and that's all that really matters to me. I saw it happen, and it was
Right.
just an honor to be a part of that team.
I think that's why people have the skepticism is, of course, there was no photos released. As you said, you think they should just release the photos. But the reason why they don't release the photos is they say, well, they're too graphic or they could incite violence or something, right? And the fact that his body was reportedly buried at sea within 24
Yeah.
hours.
Mhm.
So we have no body, we have no photographs, and it was 10 years after 9/11, and so America was growing weary. Are you going to get this guy? I mean, it makes us look bad, right? It makes our military look bad. It makes our military look weak that we cannot get the guy right after 9/11. I mean, that the fact that it took 10 years, way too long that he was
It did.
able to evade us with all of our sophisticated surveillance, CIA. I mean, we've got the best military in the world, the best surveillance in the world. We've got the best of the best, and yet we can't find this guy that's like hiding in caves for 10 years or something. And then finally, so then it almost just, for those that, and I don't have a thinking either way on whether or not the guy was killed. I'm neutral on, I'm the type that says, yeah, I could believe he was killed by you. I could believe that he wasn't, like, whatever, but I could see why people would think he wasn't actually killed. And that is just the US saying, we got to end this. We got to put it to rest. But that's super risky. I mean, then you look at the other side of that. Like, why would we lie about it? If we lied about it, there's always the risk that then the Osama bin Laden comes out a year later and says, I'm not dead. Here I am. What a farce. And then we
That
look
was,
even
I
more
mean,
dumb.
that'd be a video I'd watch. It's not coming. And I mean, even Al Qaeda confirmed he was dead. They actually made a joke about it. We were intercepting some of their phone calls a few days later, and this is a true story. Two Al Qaeda hardened Al Qaeda fighters were talking, and one guy said, "Who turned him in?" And the other guy jokingly said, "He turned himself in." And the other guy goes, "Why?" And he goes, "He was living in the same house for 5 years with 3 women. He called him himself." So just there, and I remember hearing that, like, wow, I guess everyone's got jokes, even these terrorists. But yeah, I mean, it is. I don't know why they won't release it, and I didn't see him get buried at sea. I did see, we handed him off to the Army in Bagram Airfield, and they flew him to the carrier that allegedly dumped him at sea, but I didn't see it. And I mean, even now with what we're finding out about the government and after the lockdowns, like, you at this point in my life, you have to convince me the world's not flat, that we actually went to the moon. Like, there's so much. So if someone doesn't believe I was in bin Laden's bedroom, that's up to them. And I mean, I'll tell my story, and if I ever get the pictures, I'll show you. But I mean, I know what happened. That's all I can say.
The only other thing that would make me think, okay, maybe he wasn't really, maybe he killed a different guy, was like, maybe if to go along with that thread of thinking, would be that maybe the government knew that you guys had actually killed him earlier than that. And it was like, oh shit, we killed him already and we didn't realize it. And he's been dead for a while, but now we kind of miss out on that moment. So maybe then we're going to stage it, or I don't know. Like, that would be maybe the only reason.
These are all legit questions. I mean, we're not exactly in a time where it's like, just trust the government. Like,
right.
It's again,
but you were there, you did it. You say he's, and you're sure it was him.
100%. There's no doubt. I mean, even I talked to his daughters that saw him die, like, and just the way they said, "Okay, you got him. That's Sheikh Osama," and to see the response of his family. I mean, again, not everybody's a terrorist, and they just got woken up and saw their dad get blasted. So I mean, it's real for me. I saw it go down, and that's. I mean, also the conspiracies are like, well, he was working with the CIA. Yeah, I mean, we were arming the Mujahideen to fight the Russians. Charlie Wilson's war. We were sending Stinger missiles over to them. Everybody works for us at some point. So again, I wasn't involved with that. I was just born. So.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, speaking of being born, I realized the other day that the kids that were born, now there are adults now who have never lived a day on this planet without us being at war. The war on terror. It is crazy. It is. I mean, they've just grown up in this environment.
It's too bad too, because they're at war, but 9/11 is not real to them because it's in the history books. Because I go home to Montana, I talk to high schools, and the seniors weren't even alive. I mean, not even close. So it's almost like someone coming back and explaining Pearl Harbor and then looking at pictures. It happened, but it's not real. So it's the same with 9/11, and then for them to just be at war all over the world, it is an odd time too. I mean, especially with social media, with the algorithms coming in through TikTok. We're the only country that encourages our youth to hate our own country. So it's like, it's a wild time.
Well, I mean, you look at these kids that have only known this war on terror. Here you are, you killed Osama bin Laden in what, 2011? Now we're 14 years out of that. I mean, that should have been the end of it, right? I mean, why wasn't that the end? Why didn't we just say, okay, Osama bin Laden's dead. We got what we wanted. Took us 10 years. Let's get the hell out of here. Instead, we've continued this war on terror. And I think it causes a question. And I'm curious what your thoughts on it. Now that the country has shifted mentality-wise, especially Middle Eastern wars, war on terror, things have not gotten better as far as terrorism and the groups. The ISIS was much worse than Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda now has taken over Syria, and we're cheering it on. I mean, that alone, how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's sad. We've been arming Al-Qaeda. We were doing that. That's why Benghazi was there, trying to arm what they would call the moderate rebels to defeat the Assad regime, when the moderate rebels we're being lied to because that's Al Qaeda and we're sending guns to them. That's just how it went down. I mean, bin Laden was very important because he's a figurehead of the worst attack on this country. And that does help with the healing process. But, people are going to step up. Like Hamza bin Laden, I think, is still alive. We said he was dead. He's running the training camps in Afghanistan, the country that we left all of our stuff behind. And basically, as of recently, we're sending them hundreds of millions of dollars a week still under the guise of foreign aid or whatever the humanitarianism. It's going to Al Qaeda and the Haqqani network. But I mean, even with Iraq, Iraq's one of those things where we never should have invaded. Also, we never should have left the way we did. But me thinking back to it now and all the people I've killed, and because we were doing strategic hits in houses, so all the people that I killed up front, close, like really close, same room. The thoughts are now I just killed the guy in front of his two sons. Did I kill a terrorist, or did I make two more?
Yeah.
You got to think ahead of what you're doing. You got to know your heritage, know your history, know the lay of the land and what their history is too. Like the countries we go to are a hell of a lot older than this country, and I've seen it before. Where we got two wars going on, and I people will switch where their unit is going. I've seen before where a commander is briefing the guys and says, "All right, here's the thing. They were supposed to go to Iraq, and now they're going to Afghanistan." And so the slide says Iraq, and someone in the crowd goes, "Well, sir, we're going to Afghanistan, not Iraq." And he goes, "Iraq, Afghanistan. What's the difference?" It's like, well, a lot, and you shouldn't even be in charge if you have to say that. There's a hell of a lot of difference because people don't realize even if in Afghanistan. The Pashtun people don't want foreigners there, but Al Qaeda are foreigners also. They're from Arab countries. They're foreigners. We're foreigners. You got to understand the dynamics. You got to understand the culture, the cultural sensitivity. Even we didn't care about that at first because we weren't educated enough to understand if you go into someone's house, regardless of how bad it is, if you desecrate the Quran in front of them, you're not going to win their hearts and minds. And you've got to be smart about that. We started to take women with us who are the cultural team that we started after years to realize, okay, because we're handling their women and children, they're not going to like us. We need women to do that. It's more respectful. Stuff like that you wouldn't think about in combat, but if you're going to stay that long, you better. Because it doesn't matter what your intentions are. You stay long enough, you are an occupier. And unfortunately, that's how we are looked at.
Yeah, I mean, there was a letter that recently went viral a couple of years ago of bin Laden, the letter to America that he wrote back in. When did he write this letter? I think he wrote it in 2002, but it went viral a year and a half ago, right? And in the letter, he says, he basically lists out his grievances. And now when people read back at that letter, the reason it went viral was because they were like, well, we kind of agree with the guy. I mean, we agree with Osama bin Laden. I mean, he's basically saying, look, I'm mad at you because U.S. military intervention in Muslim countries, you shouldn't be here. And I think that's a legitimate feeling, right? I mean, if they were over here on our soil, invading our country or building bases in our country, I bet you anything Americans would be rising up and trying to kick their asses out. Like that would be the first thing that we tried to do. And so they were saying, look, military intervention, like you guys being over here on our soil in our neck of the woods, we don't want you here. Economic exploitation, moral and cultural corruption, right? He kind of lists off all of these things of basically you're just coming over here and you don't belong. You're a bunch of foreigners. And a lot of people now look at that and say, yeah, I mean, here we are with young adults that are now serving in the military, the young adults who are the recruits. They have never known life without us being in this war on terror in the Middle East. And when they talk about military morale is down and kids are, and the recruits, they can't get the recruits. And, one of the things that's not even being talked about right now as to why the military had to kind of move to this towards a woke agenda was because they couldn't recruit and they were trying to get anybody and everybody. And they were like, we'll take all of these, we'll take the trans kids because they got nowhere else to go. Like they're willing to sign up. Right. And they don't ask the reason for that. It's not like the military went woke because the military was woke and went woke. It's kind of went woke out of necessity. Like, who can we grab? Oh, well, we'll take, because the other kids weren't willing to come anymore. They're like, no, I'd rather go to college than go off to this war that has been going on my entire life, like literally my whole life. And you guys got Saddam Hussein, you got Osama bin Laden, and you still won't get out of there. And you created ISIS. There's a new, and they're worse. And so what's going on here? I think there's that the letter went viral and people looked at it and said, yeah, Osama bin Laden was right all along. What do you make?
I mean, it did go viral, but the issue I can agree with what they're saying as far as, going to someone else's land where they don't want you. That's fair. What they didn't realize is that he also said how he wants to get along is we'll just put Sharia law all over the world. And for people to think they have it bad here now, go live under Sharia law. Go check out the West Bank, or check out the Gaza Strip, or go to Syria. You want to see Sharia law. That's not a good place. Whereas for Palestine, they would last half a day in Palestine. So there's that. So the letter was well written because he was a smart guy and he had a big following. But for people to believe that maybe he was a good guy is way out of line. And I blame our public school system and the TikTok for that nonsense, because they're feeding them anti-American stuff. Now, the Al Qaeda thing, they really got a boost when we went to try to help Kuwait against Saddam Hussein, because we had the Soviets had just left Afghanistan. Bin Laden had the Mujahideen, and he actually offered to Saudi Arabia, his home country, we can come back and defend Saudi Arabia so that the Iraqis won't come in to here. I mean, we might not be able to get them out of Kuwait. We went in their Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, obviously because we have a lot of interest in oil, and let's not BS ourselves. That's what we're going for.
Right.
The world economy, the oil, we love it, even though we never take it, which again I think spoils a war we should. But but I don't think we should invade. So I don't want to sound like a warmonger. So there is that to say, and we're not good at putting ourselves in other people's shoes. Like maybe they don't want us here, and maybe we're not solving their problems. I mean, we tried to build how many schools in Afghanistan? They don't want any of those. I had so many people in Afghanistan. I lived in Afghanistan in the cities, and I had so many guys say, "Why would I send my sons to school when I can just teach them how to farm?" And that makes sense, and that's how they live, and that's how they want to live. So yeah, if I was a kid that age, especially under the last administration, with the confusion with the woke, which where we're going with green energy, all that stuff, I wouldn't have joined either. I would have discouraged people from joining. Now, especially under Pete Hegseth, who's making changes as Secretary of Defense, I would encourage them to now. And hopefully it's tough to say what we're going to do because you got Syria cooking back up again. Obviously, there's Iran all the time with nukes, stuff going on in Israel. You got Yemen, and the hostages allegedly going to release all of them, even the dead ones, which I don't even want to get into today. There are places we need to go, and just saying no, it's such a, we need to get back to our roots, the triage of forward defense, alliance, solidarity, and most importantly, deterrence. A strong military makes a strong United States, and a strong United States makes a safer world. It's that it. However, we don't need boots on the ground everywhere. We don't need boots on the ground now in the Gaza Strip. If we're just going around to save people, look at Sudan, look at the Congo, look at the genocides going on all over the place. There's been civil war in Syria the whole time, even though we're getting our mitts in there. Yeah, we should pull back. And same with NATO. Yeah, you know what, Europe, it's on you. Why don't you do something for a change? I agree with that too. I'm really tired of seeing people leave the Pentagon with 4 stars, start making millions of dollars in the military-industrial complex, so they can send people to war they've never been to, even if they are a general. Just because you've been to Iraq or Afghanistan doesn't mean you've been to combat. People know who I'm talking about. So watching people get rich while young people die. And again, if 27-year-old Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill could hear 48-year-old Rob O'Neill saying this, he'd be pissed off. Because back in the day, I was all about America, apple pie, and I'll invade anyone. But now that I'm seeing the truth and actually just trying to take the time to understand other people, I think I like to say I'm a little bit smarter, but maybe I've just lost a lot of brain cells. It's one or the other.
Do you think so? So just to clarify, do you think we should be in the Middle East right now?
Well, I mean, we should have kept a base in Afghanistan. Should we be in? It's tough. No, I don't think so. I think we should assist Israel. They're going to handle everything. A naval presence. We should knock out the Houthis because we got to knock out the proxies before we get to Iran, because the bottom line, the number one thing that we do not need is Iran getting nuclear weapons. They will use them. And I don't know how many, I've banged my head against the wall so many times saying, hey, they're going to lie to you. Negotiations aren't going to work. You need to handle something with the mullahs in Iran. And the way to do that is with a coup. We're not going to, I mean, yes, we can bomb them and destroy them, but it's so complex because it's not the Iranian people that we have a problem with. It's the clerics. And if they can, but the problem is whenever they rise up, which we've seen, they start to rise up whenever a woman's hung to death or stoned to death because she's showing too much hair. They rise up, we blow them off. Our media stops covering them. Our politicians do nothing. So they don't, I mean, we're to a point now, hopefully we're changing, where if I was over there, I'd be like, why would I trust the United States right now? I'm not going to risk my family's life because they're going to say they're going to come save us, which they never end up doing.
Yeah, but who have we saved?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like we've gone over there with, we're going to bring you American freedom. We'll roll through Iraq and we'll all be friends. That's how our government was thinking. And I just went in to shoot people. But it's like, if you think about, I mean, that started in 1993. Once we told the Shia, we're going to rise up, we'll take you all the way to Baghdad and take down Saddam, who's a Sunni. We told them that. They rose up. We ditched them. And then he slaughtered the Shia. That's like, there's a bad pattern of us doing that a lot.
Right. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think we have not been able to save anybody? Do you think it's a matter of we act like we're tougher than we actually are and our military
No,
is not capable?
we pretend that people want to live like we do, and they don't. A lot of people do, a lot of people don't want our style of democracy. A lot of people in certain parts of the world look at places like Hollywood and Las Vegas and think that we're sinners. They
Yeah.
don't want us to come over just because we think Jeffersonian democracy is great. They don't. And
Hmm.
you again, you can't just be "I'm the toughest. We're Americans. You should love us" type nonsense. You need to see the way they're thinking and why. Just the same way that you run a business. You know, like yes, the buck stops with me, but I need to understand why you come to work and how can I maybe align those two more so we both move forward together so we can be successful together. I think it, and this is just my opinion, maybe it gets to a point in leadership in both politics and the military where eventually all you care about is your own personal power and your own personal wealth. And I've been saying about the
Yeah.
military, one of the issues we have is the second you stop carrying your own luggage, you need to resign because you're no longer a soldier. You've got people carrying your stuff. You're not making good decisions. You're looking at your next career.
When you say that, the young people are hating America and you think that we're the only country that teaches our kids to hate our own country. Do you think when I look at like I would think you would have the most reason to hate the country out of anybody and that would be I mean, I'm shocked you don't, to be honest with
Oh, I
you.
love our country.
Um,
I love our country. I hate Washington D.C. I can't stand that place. I hate our politics. I hate our the way the swamp works and the lobbyists, the non-governmental agencies, the people who are unelected making what do they like? What's the term they like to use? The mandate, not a law. The
mm,
lawmakers don't make laws anymore. They get on TV, argue with each other, and go have cocktails. I hate D.C. I think the FBI should be moved to Georgia, and
yeah.
I think the president should be working out of Mar-a-Lago. These people shouldn't be meeting at Cafe Alana
Yeah.
every night to talk about who's the best, whatever they are. I mean, I've been in there before. You got everyone from you got a senator here, Wolf Blitzer over here. There's just, I mean, it's a show.
You make a good
It's
point.
a big game.
They all that's probably the best way to drain the swamp is to just totally eradicate DC. Like break it up. No more
Yeah,
DC. They're not going to descend into one place because you're right. The issue with it is that they all get together and they party together. They're friends.
seriously,
They have sex with each other. They party with each other. They work with each other. There's a revolving door. I mean, there's so much going on and it's a tiny place and they all
it's
know each
tiny.
other and
Yeah.
how many journalists, like you said, are married to the politicians? And then
Oh
how
yeah.
many of the politicians go and become the big lobbyists for the big industries? I mean, it is such a cesspool. It's like a giant high school and they're operating
Yeah.
like a high school. And so the best thing maybe to do in order to break up the swamp would be to say, you guys aren't descending. You guys could all do this over Zoom. Like from now on, all meetings are over Zoom. You vote over
Yeah.
Zoom. You're all
Well, they
Zooming
could
it
easily do
in.
that.
And you have to live with your constituents. You have to live in your districts. That's just the way it is. You have to live
That's
where
the
you
way. Yeah,
represent.
that's the way it was originally planned.
That's the
Was
way it should be.
yeah, and that's I mean term limits. That where did the why is it the the only people with term limits is the president? And you got to
Yeah.
realize, I mean, I think hopefully people my age can realize that the problem in DC is not the man in the White House for 8 years or 4 years. It's the person on Capitol Hill for 50 years. There's your problem.
Right. Yeah.
Term limits.
Yeah, it
And
really
I mean,
is.
look, I mean, the two people that vote on raises for the politicians and their terms are the politicians themselves. It's this, I like to call it the self-licking ice cream cone. It's not going anywhere. And I
Right.
mean, they're to the point now where like voters will think of one thing they vote for, and the rest is just name recognition. That's why, like
Hmm.
guys like Senator Warner, he gets elected in Virginia because of the Governor Warner, who was actually good. People just go in there and vote Warner. I recognize that name. That's why incumbents stay
Yeah.
incumbents. I mean, I bet there are so many people in Nancy Pelosi's district that don't even know she represents them. It's just, I mean,
Well,
and
it's like
again, it's a part
Dianne
of the education.
Feinstein, who was being like rolled in on her
Sure.
deathbed, and Mitch McConnell, who's also, the
Yeah,
last primary, I think he got 85% of the vote, and the guy's having a stroke on live TV every other day. I mean,
live
it's
TV. That
terrible.
happened recently too with another guy, a
Yeah.
Democrat, and I don't like seeing that. It doesn't make me happy. Like this is
Right.
it's elder abuse, but they're doing it to themselves because they still got those. They still can make those votes, sorry, have staffers go in and make the votes for them, and
Yeah.
so they get
Right.
kickbacks. Who was the
Yeah.
congresswoman who was actually living in a retirement home, like she like a not a retirement home, but like an insane asylum, and then she was still a member of Congress, and they didn't tell. I got to look that up. I'm telling the truth. I wish I knew. I wish I looked that up because it's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's
Well,
DC.
that's a
Like you
good
said, it's a
yeah, I
small
like your
place. Everyone
solution.
knows each other, and it's like Like right now, my father's 75 years old. He's a great age for his first term in Congress.
Well, I should tell my dad to run too. He's about the same age.
Let's do
No,
it.
you make a great
I'll
point.
go with you.
People ask me like, can we ever think about moving to DC? And no, I don't want to be anyone's friend. I've got to be able to criticize everybody. I don't want to be anybody's
There you go.
friend. And you move
Yeah.
there and you have to, it's just such a small place. And you just don't even know that they're on different. Once you go out into DC and you see them out at the parties and the restaurants and the bars, you realize
Yeah.
they're all in cahoots with each other. There's no left,
Yeah.
right, none of it. There's no Democrat, Republican. They're all hanging out with each other.
I do need to say one thing because I said I hate DC, which is not true. The one thing I love about DC, and I'm saying this on purpose, is the diversity. The diversity, because I'm a foodie. The food in DC is incredible because you got every country represented. That
Yeah,
I can
that's
live
true.
with. Get rid of the government buildings, but keep all the restaurants, and I will be there.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh,
So the reason why I say that I think you of all people would hate the government rather than like the TikTok kid, more than the TikTok kid, would be, the sacrifices that you've made, your friends being killed, you've seen the personal losses, you've been over there, you've fought, you've killed people, and you've done all of this. And yet, what, like, honestly, did any of it matter? I don't think it
I
did. I got to be honest
I
with you.
deal with
It
this.
didn't.
I deal with this a lot, especially talking to combat veterans, because when it comes down to it, when you're in the fight, it is no longer pushing a certain agenda or trying to map out something. You're fighting for the man or woman next to you, and that's it. And that gets very personal. And I tell every soldier, the fights you were in, we won the fights. We did win those fights on the ground, and you defended your brothers and sisters in arms, and so you need to be proud of that. You did what you were asked when they told you to go through that front door. You did. And so I'm very proud of the military. I love the pilots. I can't say enough good things. Pilots never get enough credit for anything. They're just awesome. The sniper, but I mean, even think about with the military, it's not just the guys that get off the helicopter to kill bin Laden. It's the dude who opened the doors of those helicopters. It's the mechanics that kept those helicopters flying. It's the guy who made the meal before we left, or the person who drove the bus to get the shooters into the helicopter. The whole team, the intel, the packages, incredible people, awesome people. That's what I love about this country. It's just the politicians that make horrible decisions without the troops' best interest in mind. So don't like the politics. Don't like the politicians. Love the country. Love the military.
But they're just sending you into useless wars.
Yeah, that's politicians. That's why I don't like them.
But you
And
don't
then I
look
mean,
back and then
certain generals and admirals, they're politicians also. And not, and again, it's just what can we better to get to line the pockets of somebody else.
they asked you, I mean, these politicians, right? They asked you to go and kill people that in the end, I mean, especially with Al Qaeda, I mean, maybe you're not struggling with it as much as maybe other people that are struggling with this, but the fact that now the government is cheering Al Qaeda taking over Syria, the guy that's now the leader of Syria was beheading Americans. I mean, he was like killing your friends. I mean, that's the
Uh-huh.
guy, and yet now he's in charge and he's being invited to meet with all of these leaders and he's being embraced in the West as the new leader of Syria and legitimized and all of these things. And this guy was killing your friends in Iraq, and he's with Al Qaeda, he's with ISIS, and now he's the leader. I mean, doesn't that upset you to no end? I mean, I would just be livid thinking I killed people for you and my friends got killed. And now suddenly we're supposed to just act like Al Qaeda's the good guys and let them take over Syria. And it's like, great news.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're saying that Al Qaeda is the good guys. The problem is we're lying to ourselves about whether or not that's actually Al Qaeda, which it is. Yeah, I mean, I don't like Syria either. I'm not going there. Like here's my thing on going to other countries. If I need to see a pyramid, I'm going to go to Vegas or Memphis. We have one in each. I don't need to go to the Middle East, and we don't need to be in the Middle East. Again, it's because they'll say it's because of international trade, because of oil, because of alliances and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy with it. But again, the tough decisions need to be made. And if you have people like this, you need to take them out. But again, also you need to leave. We don't need to try to rebuild anything. It might have worked in Germany, but we spent more money than we did. We spent more money in Ukraine than we did on the Marshall Plan in Germany. So the whole thing's broken. Hopefully now we got new people in charge that'll stop doing these endless wars. But They were fought for a reason. I mean, I can be just as pissed at our politicians than I am at, the Taliban.
Yeah. I mean, do you think we should, so you think we should leave now, right? You don't think we should be over there?
No, I mean, we should have a presence, but that's why we have aircraft carriers. We have moving cities and amphibious ready groups that can go anywhere we need. Deterrence
Yeah.
is what we need. Deterrence is a really good, I mean, when you're dealing with people who think that death brings them paradise, that's one thing, and you can give them death, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, boots on the ground are not always, they're rarely necessary. And I mean, even in places where we'd go, Southern Europe, sometimes they didn't like us. I remember going to like Croatia in 2000 something, and they didn't like us just based on history.
Mhm.
So just the realization, we do have those two oceans that protect us from everybody, but you don't, just because we make great movies in Hollywood doesn't mean everyone actually likes us. So
Right.
I think the way to do it too is trying to keep it simple. One of my favorite saying is you got to be smart about being stupid, and we haven't been smart. We've just been stupid.
Yeah. What is life like when vets come home? I mean, there's really not a lot of discussion about this, but one of the issues with the homelessness crisis. I mean, here we've got 770,000 Americans who are homeless. Many of them are vets.
Yep.
And people are very frustrated with the fact that we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars, for example, on Ukraine. We could have taken half the money we gave to Ukraine for 1 year, 1 year's worth of money we gave to Ukraine. We could take half of that money and we could have built homes for every single homeless person in America. A little home for
Yeah.
every single one, worth about 150 to $200,000. We could have provided homes for all of them. What's the struggle coming home for vets, and what kind of is what's the issue?
Well, the good news that we got because of the Vietnam veterans is we get treated individually better than they did, because they got treated like crap, as we all know. Veterans now, when they come home, they do get a good homecoming, and people are really good to the vets. The problem is with the sustained war. These two wars were the longest we've ever had, and
Mm,
they weren't fought with a front line and behind the enemy lines type stuff. This is walking around. I know people that got killed leaving an outhouse trying to go to the next building and just got hit with a rocket. Like, it can happen at any time, and it's scary. So just like, and there are people, soldiers and Marines, who don't have the platform that I do, that had a much more dangerous job. And that's like driving around Baghdad all day long. And just the thought of, I could blow up now, I could blow up now, I could blow up now, I could blow up now. That
yeah,
anxiety that comes home with it, you don't just brush that off. And then just with again, we were talking earlier about the 4th of July with loud explosions, with potential flashbacks, with post traumatic stress, which is real. And I mean, if someone tells you they were in combat and weren't scared, they're probably lying, and that just
mm,
follows you back. So the hard part is the trauma. We could definitely do a better job. I mean, we could probably take the millions of dollars we've been paying in Social Security to people over 200 years old, all the waste they're finding. We could easily do a lot for not, I mean, homeless vets, of course, but obviously other homeless too. We could be, I think that you'd be hard pressed to find any taxpayer that would say, as long as my taxpayer money is going towards homeless and homeless vets, I have no problem paying my taxes. But when you see stuff like Ukraine, blatant money laundering.
yeah,
Look in Mrs. Zelensky's closets and see all the millions of dollars of jewelry she got in Paris and New York. She didn't afford that on her husband's salary. By the way, he canceled all elections too, and we're just sending him money. The waste, the printable money that it's a shame. But yeah, the veterans come back to that, and the PTSD is not good. Sometimes veterans turn way too much to alcohol, because the VA is already either blowing them off or giving them way too many opiates. They got a medicine cabinet full of drugs that just makes them spin upside down, and then all the alcohol. That's when you get into the depression, the problems, the suicide. Most
yeah,
veterans that kill themselves, I'd be willing to bet they weren't sober when they did it. So a lot of the readjustment type stuff is difficult. However, when veterans do what they do and use the skills the military has given them, stress management and communication, lead or be led, and nobody ever worked for me, they work with me. They can thrive, and they have. It's just a matter of seeing it, and then getting in there and trying to assist.
yeah. The ones that are homeless, is that mostly mental illness, drug abuse? I mean, PTSD. What do you think?
I would say that. I would say a little bit of maybe some mental illness, maybe PTSD, or a combination of the two. It is tough too, and I've been there before too. It's like you just I'm having a shitty day, and tomorrow's going to be worse, and it's just, you can spiral if you let it, and so you got to pick yourself up. And like I tell people now, just individual with veterans, is if you're having a bad day, call someone, definitely.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, if you're having a good day, call someone because maybe they're having a bad day, and just getting together, talking little things like get out of bed, check the obituary. If your name's not in it, it's a good day. Get some sun, go to the gym, stuff like that. But then, yeah, just a little hopelessness with how the government the government doesn't owe me anything for my service. I don't owe them anything. The Navy doesn't owe me anything. And sometimes that's a tough gig for people to realize, I went over there and fought and now I'm just cut off. If you don't do 20 years, you don't get a pension. You don't, I mean,
Yeah.
when I got out 17 years and I hit the VA up on my day, I was leaving active service and said, what about my daughters now? What's the deal for healthcare? And they said, at midnight tonight, it's gone. I'm like, oh, thanks for my service. That's cool. So stuff like that. There's not really a good process. And I don't blame the military. They don't have any interest in helping people get out of the military because they want people to come into the military. But there's a lot of stuff we could be doing, especially, well, like I just started a cannabis company, and I think that helps with PTSD. I've been into psychedelics too, and there are alternative ways to handle PTSD. The government's afraid to explore. Why? Well, because Big Pharma would lose billions because they don't want the cure. They just make a lot of money on the treatment. So they'll keep feeding you pills,
Yeah.
keep you dumb, stuff like that. So that's the cannabis thing's great. I just started a company, and it's a really good way for a lot of vets that I know.
Yeah, I saw that you were in the New York Post recently, and they said you went from killing to chilling. I was like, oh,
You know what? I saw that, and I immediately thought I am definitely making that T-shirt. It's because I have an apparel
yeah,
company.
right, killing to
But that killer
chilling.
to chillin' is good. I've seen a couple. They said from SEAL Team 6 to SEAL Team Spliff.
Oh, geez.
It's
What's
kind
the
of funny.
cannabis company what is it that you
It's
just
called
created?
the website is operatorcanna.com. So CANNA.
Okay.
The company is Operator Canna Co. And right now we're in. I just got my license in New York, which took a couple of years. We did it the right way. So we're in New York. We're working in Florida, but right now in Manhattan and Staten Island, and then hopefully Long Island. We're in a company called The Flowery. They own the shops, and then we're going with our strands of cannabis. Right now we have three strands of cannabis for. Right now we're working with indica, which is a healer, and
Yeah.
that's it provides like a mellow high for you to want to relax, like after a long day. And then the Satvia is like a lemon. It's a lemon haze. It's more of, we call that the warrior, energetic, like kind of be on alert, but also you're focused. And then the hybrid is, we call that the shooter, which is a combination of both the Satvia and the indica. And it's it's a balance of focus and calm. So you're going to be there. So, and I thought those were good names just for my former career as a Navy SEAL. You got the shooter who gets there, the warrior who fights, and then the healer who comes home. So that's our three right
Yeah.
now. And then we sell them in, we've got little tins. They look like the mint tins. And one says front toward enemy, which is keep it simple. That's the front of a Claymore mine. There's one way it shoots. It's a directional thing that you want to shoot the right direction. So the easiest way to say front toward enemy. And that's, we put our Sativa 5 pre-rolls in the front toward enemy. And then the fire like this those are the pre-rolls with our indica. And we, on the front of that, it's a maroon can, again with an Army manual, a guy with a rocket on his shoulder, and all the manual says is fire like this, which is kind of funny because towards enemy, simple. Fire like this, simple. So they come in pre-rolled. You don't need to roll them, or the flower comes in the cans.
And you can't ship that stuff, right? You have to be
I'm not
in
able
New
to ship
York
right
or
now. No, but we're going to work
okay.
on it now. We want the people to go into the stores now so we can build on it and ship it. Because the one thing too that it helps me with, the reason I like cannabis so much is for sleep. Because like
Yeah.
it's almost like, and you don't need to be a combat vet to have anxiety. The memes that say what my mind is doing when I should be thinking about, and it's like someone juggling all that crap. My mind works that way. A lot of people's minds too. What cannabis does for me is it gets rid of the noise, helps me focus on what I should be thinking about to be calm to sleep. And and I'm not blaming the government for Ambien because I love Ambien, but they got me on Ambien. But now because of cannabis, I don't need to take Ambien, which is great. I mean, I
Mm.
have it in case I need it, but I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it type thing. But the cannabis takes a lot of that away, and it's just plus to unwind. I like have some cannabis and then turn on like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, watch 2 episodes, and I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of my family members use cannabis for sleep.
It's great for
They
sleep.
like
It's great for a lot of
yeah.
things too. And again, it's just it's the weird vibe that, again, big pharma and government doesn't want you to think it's natural.
Yeah.
It's just they don't want you to have it because it works.
Well, a lot of people just don't like a lot of my family members, they're just not comfortable with taking the big pharma stuff. They don't want to get addicted to sleeping pills. They don't like the chemicals. They don't like all of that. They want that natural solution and it works. So They
It
definitely
totally
use
works.
it.
Cannabis is the way to go to. I mean, I wouldn't be a part of it. I wouldn't put my name on it if I didn't really believe in it.
Yeah. So interesting, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about everything. And
Of course.
we do have a link to your website down below. And I know you've got a lot of books. You do speaking engagements. You've got
Mhm.
well, you wrote the book, The Operator. Which is this about what happened?
Yeah, that the operator is firing the shots that killed Osama bin Laden in my years as a SEAL team warrior. I named it the operator because that's a story of the life of an operator. Like I'm not arrogant enough to call myself the operator, but that's what the operator goes through. And basically, what I mean is a dude from Montana who didn't know how to swim in a landlocked state ends up a Navy SEAL on the most important missions that we've had. And it's just kind of proof that everyone can. You can. Doesn't matter what you look like or where you're from. You can do anything you want. That's what the operator meant at the time when I wrote The Operator. So that's my book. And on robertjoneil.com, definitely go there to get it instead of Amazon because I'll personalize and sign it. And that's fun because I want people to get creative with it's I love the way people my favorite one to this day. I've been signing them personally for a few years. A dude bought one for like one of his buddies for his birthday and he had me sign, David, you kill at selling mattresses just like I killed Osama bin Laden. Just stupid funny, but it's just cool. And it really makes it like I like to make it personal. Like it's when I talk about the team that flew into bin Laden's house, these are not break glass in case of war or men. These are dudes that are thinking about paying their mortgage, cutting their own grass, taking
Yeah,
care of their kids, and then all of a sudden they get called to do this stuff. So these are real people, and the human element of getting together with people who follow it's fun, it's cool, and it puts it on like a realistic level.
very cool. All right. Well, your link is down below. We've linked to your website and also to your cannabis company. We'll put the link down there as
Thank you.
well. Robert, this has been a fascinating conversation. I appreciate your time.
I had appreciate yours, Kim. Thank you. We can do this anytime too. I had a lot of fun. Thanks.
Oh, and I also have your X account so people can follow you there. You got a pretty big following on X, like over a half a million, 600 something thousand people following you over there. So
Yeah, if you follow me on X, take it with a grain of salt because I'm usually typing with a smile, but you can't tell through print.
all right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.